Hi. Back again, first show of 2024. Thank you for joining us.
Can we still say Happy New Year? Is it too late for that? Or?
I don't know when the cut-off point is. I'm saying it is, but it's our first show of the year, so we're allowed. But welcome to the HSE Half Hour. My name is Lauren Howard. I'm the Head of Networks and Communications at Executive Network Group. Myself, my colleague Laura are going to be bringing you a half-hour show every month. Here we go. Put my teeth back in, talking all things recruitment and safety. So over to you, Laura, to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hello, hopefully you all know me, but I'm Laura Orcott. I am Associate Director for HSE Recruitment and Executive Network Group. And my role, obviously HSE Recruitment, we're health and safety recruiters, but what I do is all the front-facing stuff. So I get to go out, meet with clients all the time, go to events, speak at different conferences, and really kind of help drive the safety industry forward, help change perceptions and things like that. So really interesting stuff. And obviously get to do these live shows, favorite bit of the month.
It's always fun. So yes, I suppose to continue on from Laura, as Head of Networks, I work closely with Laura and the HSE team, creating white papers, doing a lot of research into safety industry trends, and producing a lot of information for our clients. And we wanted to share this with our LinkedIn network. So this is an interactive session. Hopefully we've got the comments live and working. So
the comments are working, I can say.
Comments are working, yes. Any questions that you have, please pop them in the comment box. I will get to them as soon as the conversation allows. And for our first show of 2024, we're talking money. So everything salaries and safety. This is based on our findings from a report that I published last week. So this was solely UK focused data, sample size of around 1,900 health and safety professionals. So quite a big group, everything from advisor through to director level. And I think we've had some real interesting data. So I will put the link in the comments as well for you to download that report. But over to you, Laura, what have you kind of witnessed in the market with the salary trends?
Wow, what a big question to start with. You got anything easier?
I know I'm not. Over to you. Pressure's on.
Yeah, so look, there has been so much going on in the safety industry. We all know we've been through a crazy time, right? Can we still talk about COVID 4 years ago? But with COVID, the pandemic, the impact of that, it has been a really strange time for health and safety. And we've seen a lot of interesting changes to the industry through that time. Salaries went mad, teams were expanding like crazy. There was a real push on health and safety, right, over the last few years. What I think we're starting to see now, and I believe, the remuneration report kind of backs this up, and anecdotally from us working in the industry, we're starting to see it settle down a little bit, which is interesting. It couldn't keep going at the rate it was going forever. The salaries were going up and up and up. So they're starting to settle a little bit. Everything's starting to equal out a bit more. I think, there's been a real big push for bringing new people into the industry, and the salaries at the lower level have kind of reflected that. They've been really tempting for people trying to build that pool, because we know we have a kind of a really big age gap in health and safety. So that's really helped, and we've kind of filled that gap a little bit more. But the problem we've had with that is because the salaries were rising so quickly at that lower end, it was pushing the managers and the head ofs, and there was only so far those salaries could go. So I think we've kind of hit the peak now, where if there is too much more inflation on it's going to overbalance the whole system. I think what we're going to see this year is very much salaries starting to stabilize across all different sectors. We're going to see, I think, clients being a little bit more picky, So the last couple of years, again, because there's been such a push for health and safety, and because they've been trying to tempt people in and trying to be really competitive, clients have been very open on what they've looked at and who they've hired and all that sort of thing. And I think they're going to start getting a little bit more selective going into this year, just to try and equate for those big salaries and the numbers that are kind of floating around. So we're already seeing that. We're seeing that clients have got quite high expectations, not necessarily in terms of qualifications or background. They're not saying, okay, now you've got to have 10 years experience to get your first job. It's not from that respect, but they're wanting more from their people. They're wanting to see that they are a benefit to the company, that they're going to come in with fresh ideas, they're going to come in with that sort of dynamic attitude, and they're going to bring something new to the table. So there definitely is a shift in that respect. And then the diversity piece as well, which I know we'll talk about a bit later on, but that's really, really shifting. And I think we're going to continue to see more of that going into 2024, that, the tables are moving. It's a different picture in terms of health and safety diversity. So yeah, it's all good, very interesting stuff. Lots going on. I mean, long story short, there's loads of jobs still. There's lots of stuff going on. So can't complain. There is definitely work out there for everyone.
Fantastic. That's what we like to hear, definitely, in the world of recruitment. Lots of work. But ultimately, I think you're right, that the tables are kind of turning and the pendulum swinging back to, especially from an employer standpoint, there's still a strong demand for hybrid working. And I know that we'll aim to get into the benefits section in a little while, but I think there's still a strong demand for that. But from an employer point of view, I think there's a real big emphasis to get people back on site and back into the office. So there might be a little bit of a power play there. So I suppose I'll keep going with my direct questions to you then, Laura. We're talking about salaries today. If I'm a candidate wanting to position myself for a pay rise, what's the best way to do that? Because you've just mentioned they're stabilising a little bit, but I'm in the market, I want more money. How's the best way to go about it?
So it's a really good question, actually, and something that we talk about with our candidates quite a lot. When people come to us and they say they're looking for a new job and the main motivator is the money, they're quite happy in the role, but they're just not getting paid enough. We always tell them to go back and speak to their boss first about money. That's the first thing you should always do, is have that conversation and be quite open and honest. You don't necessarily have to tell them that you're thinking of looking elsewhere, but go and have that conversation and say, I think I'm worth a little bit more. The big thing that we always recommend, if you are going in for a pay rise and you want to ask for more money, is you've got to be able to back up why. Right? You need your stats, you need your proof. So things like the remuneration report will really, really help, because you can show what's going on in the market and you can show what the averages are for other companies. So they're getting a little bit of industry perspective on what's happening and what you're worth. But prepare from your side, what you're good at and what you do. So take a look at your job description. And obviously, we would assume you're kind of doing everything on the job description, right? You're doing everything as it should be done. But what are you doing above and beyond that? What are you doing extra? What are you bringing to the company? And those are the sort of things that get you the pay rise. So, for example, if you're looking at improving the numbers of near miss reporting, right, that's something that you really want to target, then you go in with that proof of how you've done that and what the difference in the numbers is. And that's what kind of gives you that leverage to ask for more money. And when you combine that with then the industry standards, they can't really argue. I think the big thing with it is confidence. Right, people get really nervous about going in and asking for a pay rise, and particularly we actually see quite a strong gender divide when it looks at asking for a pay rise. So men typically tend to be a bit more confident in that area of going in and asking for what they're worth, whereas women, I think we kind of doubt ourselves a little bit, obviously generalizing, but there are some studies that kind of back that up. So confidence and preparing that information, that's what gives you the confidence. When you sit there and you say, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm doing above and beyond, you gave me these targets, I've smashed those targets, and the industry is saying I should be paid X, Y, Z extra. They can't argue, right? You'd think.
And I think you're right, the confidence to, you've got to, of course, demonstrate your competency, but it's the confidence in which to ask and to back that up. So I totally get that. So before we move on to our report, Laura, I'll spin that question on its head from an employer perspective. So I'm a client, I'm looking to hire a safety professional. How do I best benchmark? How do I know what to pay, but also how do I not upset my internal team when hiring externally, upsetting it, the old apple cart, etc. How do I get around that from a client perspective?
Absolutely. Another very good question. Full of them today. You put me on the spot. But yeah, look, it's a great question, because we get asked this all the time by clients. How do I benchmark? How do I know I'm not overpaying for someone? I want to bring in a new person, but they want $5,000 more than everybody else in the current team. I can't do that. It's going to upset people. This is a really, really common thing that we deal with. So first things first, it sounds like we're plugging this, but the remuneration report is really, really helpful here. This is why we create this information, so that you can see what's going on in the market. So that's a great place to start. Like you said, it's a huge number of people that we've surveyed for this. So this really gives you genuine averages of what is going on there in the market.
Yeah.
And I know it's uncomfortable, and clients don't always want to pay more, because I get you have budgets and things like this. But the thing we always encourage people to consider is that if you don't pay people that little bit more, you don't pay them the industry standard averages, someone else out there will, and it's going to be much more expensive for you to have to go out and hire a new person than it is to just upskill or pay the people that you've got in the team. So absolutely look at those sorts of market insights to see what's going on out there. You want to make sure that you've got a bit of flexibility, I think, with your specification and the kind of people that you're looking for. So if you're really, really stuck on budgets, and you can't move on those budgets, then you're going to have to flex. You can't go out there and say, well, I want all singing, all dancing, chartered, 20 years experience, but you want to pay under the industry average. You've got to be realistic about what it is you're looking for. And we find most of the time when clients are realistic like that, and they are more flexible, and they open up their expectations, and they change the way they look at things, they find real gems in the marketplace, because it's looking at things from a different perspective. We always, when we do a shortlist, we tend to shortlist sort of between 4 to 6 people for a client, and we'll say that 95% of them are exactly what you asked us for, and then we'll throw in a wild card, someone who does flex it that little bit, and the wild card, it does very well most of the time, because it is just changing those expectations and challenging your ways of thinking about the sort of people that you need. You can look at upskilling internally, again, so if you are struggling with that budget where you're maybe paying the industry average, but you're struggling to attract people because people want more than the average, you can upskill the current team. We really encourage clients to look at that and look at the really great talent that they've got already. What can you do with them, and where can you best utilize them, and look at promoting them up through the ranks. People generally are looking for that upward step. They don't want to sidestep. So it's quite hard to move a manager to a manager role unless there is a huge pay rise involved in it, because most people want to go up, not sideways. So definitely look at that upskilling side of thing. The other part of the question was, how do we not upset the internal team? And it is a tough situation. I completely get it. And I know a lot of the time clients' hands are tied in that respect. But first things first is, if you can move those salaries, we encourage you to at all costs, because like we said, it is much, much simpler and much cheaper for you to add a couple of extra grand on someone's salary than it is to go out to market and find yourself someone new. So if you can match the salaries, we encourage you to. And then the other thing, like we said, is, with that flexibility, that helps not upset the apple cart sometimes, because you're bringing in someone who's maybe not as qualified for them. So they're not on the same sort of salaries. So it stops them having that kind of competitive nature. But it is tough. I completely get that. If you've got a team of 10 and you want to bring someone new in and they want more money, you don't always have the budget to up everybody's salaries. But unfortunately, that's the best way. That's your best option. So
over to them and their budget. So thank you for that, Laura. I think that covered both kind of candidate and client side. And I think it's probably a good time to move on to the report that we published last week. So I have just put this in the comment section for you to download. There's a link there, free download, of course, that will give you all of the details. So I will share this now, and what we're going to do is have a look through from advisor through to director level. This is a much more comprehensive report than what we're showing you here. So I would encourage you to download it to have a look at the diversity stats. We have external industry commentary in there as well, alongside all of the benefits and bonus kind of look as well. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. She says,
yeah, we got it.
That's up. Fab. So we're starting, of course, at advisor level. We split this into two. As I say, kind of this was a level that we're seeing a big change in, although that sounds contradictory to Laura's opening statement where the stabilised salaries have, which I totally agree with, we are seeing a big kind of influx here. So over to you, Laura, what can you tell us a little bit more about the advisor level?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to come back to that stabilisation thing, I mean, this kind of backs this up that, the salaries that we've got here for advisor are higher than we've ever seen previously, and that's what's now trying to create that stabilisation, because they can't go much higher than this to be honest, without knocking on into the manager and the head of levels. So that's kind of where that's come from. This absolutely, in my mind, and based on what we're seeing, reflects what's going on in the market. There's some really interesting information here. If you look at this advisor level, what was it, like an 8% rise that they had in salaries since the last time we did this? So that's a big chunk in a year. That's a really, really big chunk. And that's like we said, that's what's providing that kind of conflict with managers, because you've got advisors who maybe aren't as qualified or don't have as much experience, and their salaries are kind of knocking on the doors of the manager's salary. But yeah, some really, really interesting information. I mean, I've been doing this for 14, 15 years now. And I remember starting salaries for HSE advisors when I started, you were talking about 20 grand. There's some really big numbers here. And I think it's great, because what we've seen as well, if you download the report, as Lauren said, you can see all the diversity information. I think that's having a real big impact on the diversity side here, because it's now an industry that is attractive to people to get into. These are good starting salaries. There's a really, really good career trajectory, and it's bringing in more young people, and that influx of young people is bringing with it more diversity. So definitely there's been a lot going on at this level. Like I said, don't know how much longer it'll carry on, but
it's got to hit a ceiling at some point. Something's got to happen for it to change. But positive if you're an advisor or wanting to get into an advisory role. So what I should point out is throughout this report, we did see a clear London disparity. So we did look at different regions across the UK. This is solely UK-based data. And we have also produced a report for sustainability, but I think that's going to be a future episode for us. But
you'll have to tune back in for that one.
Tune back in, another plug for another report that we've done. But no, there is a London disparity that we've seen, London weighting. It works out to about 8.5%, which makes sense. So I'll move on to the next level. I should also say before we move on, within this report, you'll probably see here, we did ask our respondents, do they feel fairly remunerated for the job that they do? And do they expect their salaries to rise in 2024 in line with inflation, which I think is around 6% at the moment? Don't quote me on that. I'm not from government, but it's around that. So we did get some other interesting stats. So moving on to managers then, as I say, we've seen a big jump in advisors. What can you tell us about the manager salaries, Laura?
Yeah, so the manager salaries have gone up as well. Everything's gone up across the board, but these haven't risen as much as the advisor. I think what we've done here is we've split it between managers that look after a single site and managers that look after a multi-site or number of sites, because there was a clear disparity between those two. So it made sense to kind of break that out. So I think when we were looking at managers, you're talking average salaries somewhere in the region of like 56. Obviously dependent on the industry and the location. And then the top end of those salaries for managers on multi-site, you're looking at 65 to 70. So it's quite a big range here for managers. So this is the one area of health and safety recruitment, I think, where it's so dependent on how much you've done, what you've done, that this really makes a difference here in terms of those salary side of things. And then I know you mentioned as well, we asked everybody whether they were happy with their salaries. And this, I think, was the most kind of middle ground of all the levels. It was like 48% or someone in that region that said, we're kind of happy with what we're paid. So not bad figures.
No, definitely different from advisors, which is crazy, really, because advisors have had the biggest rise in terms of overall base salary jump. They're still
the least happy.
Unhappy. Definitely. So
really shows, I think, people's perspectives in the marketplace, doesn't it? That managers tend to have we've been around for a a bit longer. We've been in the game a lot, and like we just said, we remember the days of what people got paid. So the salaries kind of seem fair to us. Whereas new people coming in, they've got really, really high expectations on what they should be paid and how they should be treated. You know, it's a real generational gap thing. Again, if you download the report, you can see in the diversity stats, there's age brackets and things like that. And obviously the advisor really, really swings younger. And that definitely, to me anyway, is kind of why they are less happy with what they get paid, because their expectations are just through the roof. Whereas managers, we've been around a while. We know what the salaries are usually like.
Definitely. And that leads us to our next kind of level, head of HSE. So what can you tell us about this, Laura? Again, you know, feeling fairly remunerated. We're seeing a little bit of an increase there. What do you think about the overall, you know, what they're getting paid head of?
Again, look, there was an increase on the salaries from when we do this every year. So that there is an increase from January 2023, not as big a jump at this level at all as any of the others. These are staying pretty stable for the most part. Again, like you said, the London thing is very, very clear when you get to these sort of senior levels. But again, the interesting thing I think is the higher up the chain you go, the happier people seem to be with their salaries. You know, more and more people seem to think, we're probably paid okay for what we do. And again, like I said, I think that comes down to experience. And I really do think that comes down to how long you've been in the safety profession for, and you know, we remember the days of the lower salaries, so we kind of understand this is pretty fair for what we're doing. The diversity stats for this level, I think, are always really interesting as well. So again, I just really encourage everyone to download it and look at it in a bit more detail, because there's some really, really interesting stuff in there.
Definitely. And what I should also mention is we do have a page within this report which highlights the difference in sector. So this is cross-sector data. We find that, you know, your high-risk sectors, your manufacturing, your construction, we're edging at that higher level. But we also find sectors such as financial services remunerated very well. So I think that makes for an interesting read. And then lastly, we come on to the final level of what we discussed, and this was HSE directors. So this does encompass, you know, VPs of safety, global directors, which that there was some real anomalies in that. There we go. Overall, this director level tended to be UK directors that oversaw the safety for different sized businesses. And again, you know, far happier with their remuneration than advisor level. So I think that's a trend that we've seen throughout. I know we've had a couple of comments asking to post the link to the report. It should be in the comments from myself, Lauren Howard, and I have posted it from Executive Network Group, but I think that's only shown on YouTube for some reason. So
okay, I'll put it in the chat as well afterwards again, just so you've got it in a few different places. Or if you're really, really struggling and you can't find the link anywhere, just reach out and drop me a message on LinkedIn afterwards, and I'll send it to you directly. But there should be a couple of them in the chats.
Fab. So what do you think of the director earnings, especially when they are more likely to earn bonus? And there's a bit of a gender pay gap here as well, Laura, which I'm sure that, you know, you've definitely interested in.
So absolutely. Again, salaries make perfect sense based on what we're seeing in the market. Like you said, the range is a little bigger because you will always get the outliers that pull it up or down. But the salaries make perfect sense for what we're seeing in the marketplace. The gender gap is unsurprisingly not surprising, if that makes sense. You know, we know this is an issue. You know, again, when we've been around in the industry for a long time, the diversity is changing. There are really, really big things happening. The junior levels, we're really seeing people embracing diversity. All the different protected characteristics are kind of represented at the lower level. We know this doesn't happen at the senior level so much, and I think that's just it's just going to be a long time. I think it's going to take its time to get up to senior. You know, at this point, most senior people are people that have been around in the industry for a long time, and they do tend to sway towards white and male. Like we said, the new people coming through will start to change that, but they're not going to get into those senior positions for 5-10 years. So the stats are always going to be slightly skewed. The gender pay gap is a little bit troubling. because we wouldn't expect there to be a gender pay gap, really. I think that's something we need to do a little bit more investigation into, to be honest, because there shouldn't be one at this level.
But unfortunately, from the data, I think it sits at around 6.9% at head of level. And I believe at the director level, it mentions that as well, which again, you can see, but there was only 22% female respondents at director level. So a total different data set. So I think lastly, Laura, something to cover is the benefits and expected benefit streams for 2024 before we run out of time. This goes so quickly. I say it every time we're on here.
It does, I know. Half an hour flies by.
I'm like, oh my goodness, nearly over. So yes, to show on the screen, this is the benefits page. We again asked what would be the most desired benefit at the 4 categories: financial, physical, mental well-being and flexibility. And no surprise with the flexibility, that is still a key component to remuneration packages. So is this typical of what you're seeing in the market, Laura? What are you expecting for 2024? Again, I'm asking you all the big questions today.
You really are, I know. Good job. I've got I had my caffeine fix for the day. It absolutely tracks again with what we're seeing. The financial benefits, the financial side is not massively different from previous years. That is still what most people want. They want the car allowance, they want share options, they want the enhanced pension. This is stuff that's been around for a while. Like you said, it's the flexibility and the mental health stuff, I think, that's really, really coming to the foreground. We always mention COVID. I don't think we'll ever get away from it, but COVID just changed the playing field, right, for jobs so much. And there are still, of course, industries where flexible working just isn't really an option. I know we see in construction, we see hardly any flexible working, whereas more office-based stuff, flexible working tends to be the norm. So we get all of that, but it is still the number one priority for most people that we speak to. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they want to work from home 4 days a week and only come to the office once, but they want something. They want to be, I suppose, treated as adults within the workplace. They want people to trust them and trust that they can do their job. And if that means that some days they're going to drop the kids off and they're going to come in slightly later, or some days, actually I can't start until 10, but I'll work till 8, whatever it is, but they just want, I think, that freedom to be trusted to make those decisions. So that's kind of our advice to clients at the moment is, if you are an industry where people need to be on site, that's fine, we get that, but what else can you offer in terms of that flexibility to give people that feeling of being treated as an equal within the company? And then obviously the mental health, the wellbeing stuff is huge. Again, that is a knock-on from COVID, but also just the fact that we're so much more open about it now. There's less stigma, so people are willing to talk about this sort of stuff, and it's a high priority for them. People want to have that good work-life balance. They want to be happy in work. They want to be happy at home, and they want their employer to support them in that. So mental health days, duvet days, always comes out as something that people want. The ability to just call up and say, do you know what, I can't do it today. And I think, again, that does get skewed a little bit by the younger generation. That is something that absolutely they're coming through with that expectation of they should be able to call their boss and say, I do my job really, really well, but today I can't. And I need the day. But that is definitely something the younger generation are really, really pushing. And then, the employee assistance programs get a lot of traction. And things like counselling and stuff like that through work get a lot of traction. So again, it's about, I think, if you are looking to employ someone, it's not necessarily about let's see how much money we can throw at them to make it more right, to make us more interesting than the next. It's about, okay, well, what do you offer as a whole package?
What's your EDP?
Yeah, exactly. That's what people are looking for, and that's coming more and more to the foreground, and that's going to be a big thing for 2024. Definitely.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think, just to continue on from your point there, Laura, earlier I asked the question, how to not upset, the apple cart internally when you're hiring everyone. It would be great to offer everyone that money, but sometimes budget restricts that. So things like looking at the benefits, looking at flexibility, trying to implement programs that benefit all of the team, as well as new hires to attract, to retain talent are key, and that's why we've done an overall remuneration report as opposed to just salaries, because there is far more to it. So, we've literally run out of time today.
I know. It always happens.
It does. I'm personally really passionate about this report, so if you have any questions, please do reach out to myself, to Laura. We can help you out with that. I've put the link in the comments and hopefully you can find it. I know that Laura and the team have posted that on their LinkedIn pages, but reach out if you'd like to download and find out a lot more. We, of course, have another instalment of our HSE Half Hour in a month's time, so we look forward to seeing you then. We, I believe, are discussing the diversity and safety next month. Am I right in saying that, Laura?
Yeah, so we're going to dive into these numbers a little bit more. So it's always a really interesting one. So yeah, something that I know both of us are really, really passionate about. So yeah, I definitely encourage you to come along and have a chat. And we will put, like we said, we'll put the link for this download in the comments. We'll put the link for the next episode in the comments. So keep an eye on that. That'll go in the next sort of week or so. And I can see a couple of questions. Really sorry we didn't have time to get to them. I will come back and I will answer them. So yeah, keep an eye out and I will answer them on LinkedIn for you. But always happy to chat. So reach out to me.
Lovely. Well, thank you ever so much for everyone joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed the report. And as I say, any questions, please do reach out and we will see you next month.
Yeah, see you next month. Bye.
Bye.